Welcome to the championship final of the 24th annual NIBS Worldwide Business Case Competition. At this time, we ask that you turn off all cellular telephones and other mobile devices. As a courtesy to the presenters, please do not leave until both the presentation and the question and answer period are complete. Please note that recording of presentations is strictly prohibited except by competition organizers or representatives of the presenting team. The team presenting today is from Guelph-Humber. The presentation will last a maximum of 20 minutes. I will signal to the presenters when there are 10, 5, 3, and 1 minute left. Team members, please nod after seeing each sign to confirm that you have seen it. You must stop when I indicate that the time is up, even if you are not finished. After the presentation, the judging panel will have 10 minutes to ask questions. I will signal to the presenters and judges when there are 5, 3, and 1 minute left. Once again, you must stop when time is up, even if you are not finished. I now invite each member of our judging panel to introduce themselves, then the team will begin their presentation.
Hi, my name is Don Wagner. I am an associate professor here in the Faculty of Business at the University of Prince Edward Island, and I'm also the director of the MBA program in Global Leadership. And for the purposes of this case, I am the Vice President of Strategy.
Hi, I'm Whitney Hooper. I'm a Senior Planning Officer with Veterans Affairs Canada, and for the purposes of today, I'll be the Chief Marketing Officer.
Hello everyone, I'm Jordan McNally. I work for the province of Prince Edward Island as a Senior Budget Analyst, and the purposes of today, I'm the CFO.
Good afternoon, I'm Kevin Murphy, President and CEO of Murphy Hospitality Group, and today I'm being the owner.
Good afternoon, I'm Kathy O'Rourke. I'm the Managing Partner for Grant Thornton, Prince Edward Island, and today I am the Chief People and Culture Officer for our company.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ancona and fellow executives at Kidzania. My name is Daniel. Alongside me today are my colleagues from Innovo Consulting, Shirin, Janvi, and Priya. The question that you brought for us today is how might Kidzania be more sustainable in the markets it's currently in and freshen up its brand internationally. With that being said, let's get into the agenda for today's presentation. We'll be starting off with an issue identification, analysis, alternatives, a recommendation alongside of our implementation strategy, and a synthesis. At Innovo Consulting, we pride ourselves at connecting the dots for your organization globally. We've identified the opportunity for you today. Kidzania has the opportunity to become the leading global edutainment company by preparing kids for a better world. However, there are some key issues that are preventing you from achieving this. Those being a lack of strategic direction to maintain innovation. The board of directors does not have aligned visions. All of you want the best for your company, but you don't know the best direction to get there. And also an unclear marketing and brand strategy. To discuss our analysis, I'd like to invite my colleague Shirin.
Thank you, Daniel. Now, before we go on to develop an effective strategy for your organization, it is important for us to diagnose the root cause of your company's current situation in order to set its strategic priorities. Specifically, under the company analysis, we conducted a gap analysis for Kidzania to identify your organization's current state, some barriers that are hindering its ability to reach its desired state. Under the current state, your organization is one of the fastest growing chain of the indoor family entertainment. The concept of edutainment is emerging rapidly. However, there is high indirect competition. Tying that into the barriers, there has been some stagnant corporate revenues, and there are some differing expectations of the board with the management of the organization, varying from short-term to a long-term point of view. Leading us to our desired state, that your organization wants fresh content, it wants to adapt to the changing kids' interests, it wants brand differentiation, and it also wants to grow and maintain its market position. With that being said, the key takeaway is that Kidzania must balance both short-term and long-term views to grow its market position. Next, under the industry analysis, we conducted a Porter's 5 forces to assess the impact of these 5 forces on your organization's competitive and profitability landscape, and we have ranked these forces based on varying risk levels from low, medium, and high. I'd like to direct your attention towards the highest risk levels being threat of substitute products and competitive rivalry. Under competitive rivalry, your organization is competing with well-established brands such as Diversity and Kizmondo. Because those brands have concept copies of your organization's unique selling proposition, there's low product differentiation, which makes it harder for your organization to compete with them. Tying that into the threat of substitute products, your organization is facing high indirect competition from museums that are trying to push forward digital media and engage more children, also with Disney and Legoland, and there's moderate to high switching costs for the buyers when they're deciding to choose between the high indirect competition and your organization as well. Tying that into our key takeaway, your organization must use marketing initiatives to differentiate and build brand equity distinct from its competitors. Next, we have also conducted a market analysis, specifically a target market demographic, to look at how your organization will cater to the needs of children and parents. Under children, your organization is targeting kids that are from age 4 to 12, mostly boys and girls, and their interests are constantly changing due to the rapidly changing digital world. And however, they do desire to become adults, which your organization currently offers through its product offerings. Tying that in with the parents, they come from a background of medium to high socioeconomic level. However, they do have a significant impact on the buying power, and they will dictate that when they are choosing between your organization compared to the competitors, and they have a desire to educate their children. When we combine that together, your organization could provide value for the families. Therefore, the key takeaway is that Kidzania must provide value for the families as parents hold the significant buying power. Next, we also took a look at the other aspects, specifically the Porter's value chain, to identify the primary activities and support activities, and to identify whether they're restricting or driving your organization's profit margins. The areas we have highlighted in dark blue, so HRM functions, tech development, operations, and sales and marketing, we at Innova Consulting believe that they're restricting your organization's ability to drive its profit margins. Specifically under the sales and marketing, your organization requires brand differentiation as there's high indirect and direct competition, and you need more outlets to interact with these children outside of your parks. Therefore, the key takeaway from this is that Kidzania must use HRM functions and tech development to drive operations and its profit margins. With that being said, I'd now like to welcome John for our financial analysis.
Thank you, Sharon. Now that we've conducted a thorough qualitative analysis of your corporation's current state, we want to go on to further create a quantitative analysis, specifically analyzing your corporation's current financial state. I would like to direct your attention to the EBITDA calculations, which you can see right up there. As you can see, your corporation's current earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization have been remaining fairly stagnant over the past 3 years. However, there was a slight increase from 2011 to 2012, as you can see right up there. Our corporation went on to further analyze why this occurred. So we created an analysis of your total revenues in 2012 and your total revenues in 2015. As you can see from the pie charts located right up there, the total revenue in 2012 was 30% of it was from the total Mexican operation revenue, which is the Mexican operations that you currently can have, and 37% of it was from the total industry partners. Your industry partners were driving your revenues during that time. However, in 2015, that decreased from 37% to 22%. Furthermore, if you look at the income statement right up there, the total revenue for your corporation is $56 million approximately, and these figures are all in United States dollars. However, if you can see your earnings before your earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, it is currently at 21.75% of your total revenues. Therefore, the key takeaway is your corporation must generate more brand awareness in order to gain more revenues and ensure long-term growth. With that being said, I'd like to re-invite Daniel to the stage to talk about our strategic priorities.
Thank you very much, John V. We've laid out the key issues and an analysis to figure out what are the strategic priorities your organization needs to set to achieve sustainability. Those being to create an international growth strategy, to demonstrate profitability to the board of directors, to gain alignment in everyone's vision for the company, and to utilize digital platforms and media to gain larger brand awareness. With that being said, I'd like to invite Priya to discuss our alternatives.
Thank you, Daniel. We have identified 3 different alternatives for your organization to consider. The first is an interactive digital platform, which requires you to create an interactive website. The second is to develop smaller parks, which requires you to expand into smaller cities. And the final is to develop YouTube media content, which requires you to create a YouTube series to expand your brand. So moving on to your interactive digital platform, we have
generate a pros and cons analysis to analyze this alternative. And as you can see, this alternative strengthens relationship with children as it is now an industry trend. However, there is high capital investment that comes with this alternative, and as most markets within the world, it is illegal to directly advertise to children. This alternative also has the challenge of monetizing a game, as parents have the major buying power. As my colleague Sherry has mentioned, we have conducted a value chain analysis, which consists of tech development, sales, marketing, operations, and HRM, which are restricting your profit margins. As you can see in this alternative, tech development and sales and marketing are the only activities that are not restricted within this alternative analysis, still restricting 50% of your profit margins. Moving on to our second alternative, which is developing smaller parts. The benefits of this alternative is that you already currently have an established brand within Mexico, and you have an increase in participation from local governments. However, this alternative may not attract enough people to generate high revenues, and with your company's current limited resources, it may result in a costly implementation. As you can see from this value chain analysis that we have conducted, it still restricts 50% of your profit margins. Moving on to our final alternative, which is developing YouTube media content. This alternative, as we've conducted from our industry analysis, the screen time for 8-year-olds is currently 4.7 hours each day in England. Also, which means that content creation will contribute to your differentiation strategy. This will therefore lead to an increase in brand awareness, which will therefore generate higher return on investment. The only disadvantage to this alternative is that some parents may have control over what YouTube videos and which YouTube contents children are able to watch. But as you can see from our value chain analysis, this alternative does not restrict any of the activities that will drive your profit margins. We have identified 5 different decision criteria for your organization to consider, which is increased attendance, revenue growth, brand awareness, implementation costs, and long-term sustainability. We've used these decision criteria to implement into our decision matrix, which we have ranked from 1 being the lowest to 5 being the highest. As you can see from our decision matrix, the YouTube alternative is a clear winner, winning in both the decision criteria aspects and the value chain aspects. Now I'd like to re-invite Daniel to discuss our recommendations.
Thank you very much, Priya. Our recommendation for you today aligns to our strategic priorities. Kidzania must create a digital content that complements an international expansion of large parks in the United Kingdom. Apologies, that is a mistake on the slide, but it is the United Kingdom. And then there is go to digital content using YouTube Red, partner with education ministries, and secure licensing agreements in the UK. We've created an implementation strategy where in the short term it is between January 2017 to 2018 and consists in operations, human resources, and marketing. In operations, you're partnering with YouTube Red to develop this content that will increase your brand awareness to the parks across the globe. YouTube Red is the premium product for YouTube that allows individuals to purchase the content, thus increasing your revenue and allowing users, these parents, to decide what content is for their children so that they are not exposed to bad actors. That being said, you're also partnering with the Ministry of Education in England to capitalize on your London investment, create a licensing task force to identify licensing opportunities further inside of the United Kingdom, and in marketing, you're developing that storyline for the YouTube Red content around the program Growing Up. As we know, your organization tries to empower kids to do that, and that's why we feel this is a great TV campaign for you. We've created what that partnership looks like for YouTube Red and for your organization. YouTube Red will provide the production, the direction, and you will provide the content, the ideas. And that's what will increasing your revenue because of the $4.99 subscription that individuals and corporations can pay to access your content, thus providing you sustainable and safe growth internationally and locally. With that being said, I'd now like to invite Janvi to discuss our medium term.
Thank you, Daniel. We have conducted a medium-term implementation plan for your organization, which we have dictated to last from January 2018 to January 2020. We've highlighted the following initiatives in operations, human resources, and marketing for your corporation to implement. In operations, we want you to release Season 1 of the Growing Up TV show on YouTube Red, as my colleague Daniel mentioned in the short term. We will also want you to negotiate possible licensing agreements with UK media for parks in Liverpool, Manchester, Edinburgh, and Glasgow. In human resources, we would like you to hire a negotiations officer to aid with the negotiation process in UK. And we would also like you to create a customer service team, which will handle incoming questions about the Growing Up TV show. Also, hire a parental education team of approximately 15 individuals to go to local schools and educate parents on the power of the show and their parks. Then in marketing, we would like you to create an IMC campaign which will target families inside of the United Kingdom. We would also like you to promote the YouTube-bred TV show using YouTube banners, which will be promoted to educators and facility users. We've also created a sample of what our marketing campaign will look like for your organization. This marketing campaign will have the following communication objectives: to reach over 100 million people across the United Kingdom, Tokyo, and beyond, and market the safety aspects of the facility. Also, we would like you to use the usefulness and the ability to learn. Growing Up, we would also like you to implement Growing Up ambassadors, which will be actors in the program, which will then initiate individuals to come to your parks, as they will be attached to these ambassadors. We've also created outlined the following distribution channels for your corporation to use for this integrated marketing campaign. And we want you to engage with parents in the community and engage on social media, which will allow kids to prosper throughout this implementation. With that being said, I'd like to re-invite Sharon to talk about the long-term aspects of our implementation plan.
Thank you, Janvi. Now, under the long term, we anticipate this phase will last from January 2020 to 2022, and we have outlined our deliverables under the operations, HR, and marketing functions. Specifically, under operations, we want your organization to begin a construction of a new facility with UK Media Limited in Manchester. And under HR, we want your organization to begin the recruitment process for appropriate staffing for the initial opening of that facility, and also monitor and control the strategy going forward. Under marketing, we want your organization to create a Manchester marketing campaign for the opening of that new facility, and the hashtag for that would be let them be grown-ups, and also create a global fresh program in order to introduce students to develop new activities across the globe to manage your organization's global operations. Next, we have also outlined a strategy scorecard. We have outlined our deliverables under the operations, HR, and marketing functions, and we've also set benchmarks that we want your organization to achieve, specifically 80% and higher, and we'd be more than happy to work with your organization to help achieve them. Next, we've also outlined a timeline under operations, human resources, and marketing functions, and the timeline varies from year 1 to year 5, as this will ensure the long-term sustainability and the implementation of this strategy in a timely manner. With that being said, I'd like to re-invite Janvi for the financial implications.
Thank you, Sharon. Now, with any implementation plan, there are financial implications associated with it. As you can see, the total cost of this implementation plan will be approximately $1.8 million, which is in US dollars, of course. However, I would like to direct your attention to the key benefits from this implementation plan, as we have conducted a cost-benefit analysis for your organization. This implementation plan will generate high brand awareness due to the YouTube Red and the ambassadors that my colleagues Daniel and Sharon mentioned during the implementation plan. This will lead to an increase in attendance in your parks, and which will then create real global growth throughout the throughout the entire global world and throughout the European expansion as well. Through this, you will have a strong bottom line and you will gain long-term returns, which is what your corporation wants from our organization. The return on investment that we have anticipated from this implementation plan is approximately 46%, and we've gained this number through our pro forma projections analysis. We have done a pro forma income statement to analyze the total revenues and the total expenses that your corporation will incur from our implementation. We anticipate that you will have an EBITDA of approximately 45.97% after the implementation is complete in 2021. In 2022, we will monitor and control the strategy and analyze how many revenue growths your organization has at that point. Also, we've done a sensitivity analysis to analyze the sensitivity of the sales that are occurring, and we've put it on a scale from 10% being pessimistic, 15% being neutral, and 20% being optimistic. With that being said, I'd like to talk about the risk mitigations that we have analyzed for your organization. We have understood that there's various risks associated with our implementation plan, and we've ranked them on a scale of high impact and high likelihood. I would like to direct your attention to risk number 1, which has the highest likelihood of occurring, however, it has a low impact. The risk number 1 is that the children don't like the show. However, we can mitigate that through gaining input from the children through the Ministry of Education. And the contingency for that would be to create a new IMC with research that we will conduct. With that being said, I'd like to re-invite Daniel to synthesize our presentation.
Thank you, John B. Apologies on the slide. The impact and likelihood banners were swapped, so it is a low likelihood, but a high impact if it does happen. That being said, I'd be happy to synthesize our presentation for you today. Anovo Consulting prides itself on connecting the dots for your organization globally. We started with the opportunity, looked at some key issues, developed strategic priorities to address the alternatives and our recommendation, and now we're discussing our key success factors under operations, HR, and in marketing. Under operations, you're partnering with YouTube Red that allows you to get that short-term revenue to develop the alignment for the board and ensure long-term sustainability as these marketing campaigns and the development of licensing agreements all build more industry partners, which generates you more revenue and long-term sustainability going forward. Inside of human resources, you're creating that task force, looking for those licensing agreements, and beginning the recruitment process to help the Manchester facility get off the ground and ensure sustainability in the region. And in marketing, you're developing the growing up show that kids can watch and that parents can be proud that their kids can watch it, because on YouTube there is a lot of programs that parents do not want their kids to watch, and this provides them the safety and ensures that they know that they're watching the right programs, and you're creating that Manchester marketing campaign. With that being said, I'd like to thank you so much for your time, and if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, team. You now have 10 minutes for the question and answer period.
Thank you for that presentation. So I just have a question on, did you look at any other locations that we were going to expand in, or is mostly focusing on the marketing YouTube content?
Thank you for your question. When we were considering the areas, and to further elaborate, you're talking about country expansion, or what do you mean by expansion, just to further clarify? Thank you.
Yeah, just location-wise.
Thank you very much. We did consider the United States. We looked at the other opportunities in Japan, and we realized that, well, the United States is incredibly competitive, saturated by the likes of Universal, by the likes of Disney, by these destination amusement parks, that we are not in the bracket to compete with the current financial implications. And to elaborate on this, I'd like to invite my colleague Janvi to discuss.
Thank you, Daniel. To clarify why we chose the UK specifically, we looked at your corporation's current sales, and we realized that your corporation currently has opened up a new facility in 2015 in London specifically. And from that facility, you have $25 approximately for adults and $45 approximately for students, for children is how much you charge for that facility specifically. From that, the amount of sales that your organization can generate are optimal. Therefore, we decided to go with the United Kingdom because we know that that's where your organization will gain the most sales from.
In your strategy, you talked about opening in UK, and that's our core business, but you didn't elaborate who is going to open it. Is that a corporate investment, or is that franchise, or what is your strategy in that area?
To address your concern, we were looking at what is the best way to do that. And we decided that it is a franchise that will be opening up inside of Manchester using the franchise of UK Media Limited. They are one of the largest broadcasting and media corporations inside of the United Kingdom and have their headquarters inside of Manchester, so they're very familiar with the market. And that's why we view them as a perfect partner for this joint venture, as they understand the market and provide that local awareness.
So I can see how this could generate us additional revenue, but what about the risk that it encourages kids to just stay at home and watch the YouTube channel versus actually coming into the mall?
That's an excellent concern, and when we were developing our strategy, we did consider it, and that's why we have suggested the YouTube Red. Your organization currently has very high interaction within its parks, that it has high interaction with the children, and the YouTube Red is a medium through which your organization will continue that interaction, continue that touch point with those children when they're away from your parks, and encourage more frequency of visits towards your parks. So it is a way for your organization to increase its brand awareness and also have multiple touch points through that digital media in order to encourage children to transcend that YouTube interaction experience into real life.
So early in the presentation, you addressed the fact that our industry partners have dropped off somewhat over the years. So I was curious if you incorporated thinking of re-engaging industry partners anywhere in your plan.
One of the things that we really look to identify is how can we bring more industry partners back into your business? And when we were developing this, we realized that the concerns lie within the families, both in the community for the kids and for the parents. And that's why when we were looking at this, we identified that Unilever, Coca-Cola, all these organizations that you were working with and continue working with would want more of a touch point with these children and with their parents, because ultimately they're providing empowerment to these kids to learn, to view it as edutainment and not entertainment. And that's why we feel that going inside of Manchester, partnering with the United Kingdom Ministries of Education, will be incentivizing for these partners that you were working with to come back, work with your organization, increasing your revenues, and ultimately developing long-term sustainability going forward.
For the alternatives that you rejected, did you take a look at what the financial outcomes would be for those? Like, how much are we walking away from by not selecting those other alternatives?
Thank you so much for your question. And we did actually look at the financial implications of those other alternatives. However, we realized that the capital expenditure that your organization would have to pay in order to gain those revenues would not be enough to sustain you for the long term. Furthermore, you already have a new park that you've created in London. You have so much more potential to optimize that plant and to leverage that connection that you've already generated in that country. So making a completely new idea or a completely different alternative would have done more negative to your company than positive.
So in the same vein, can you talk to me a little bit more about why you chose to go with smaller parks rather than larger ones where, you know, really the investment that we need to put into it and the work we need to put behind it is relatively similar?
To clarify, I think there might have been some miscommunication. It is a large park that you will be building inside of Manchester. When we were looking at the revenues that you could bring in with a large park in Manchester, it far outweighed the revenues that you could bring in with a small park in Manchester, albeit the ticket pricing that my colleague discussed earlier, and the international opportunities located in Manchester, as they have an international and well-renowned football team that you could work with and develop activities for the students that are coming there that are unique to Manchester. And so it's not a small park, it's a large park, to clarify.
Could you just quickly go through some of the assumptions you used in your financial analysis? I know we kind of skipped over it.
Yeah, for sure. So some of the assumptions that we generated for financial analysis, first of all, we realized that the income statement that your organization provided us with only went up until 2015. So we took the assumption that the income will be transferred over from 2015 to 2016, as we know that our projections will start from 2017. However, if you do give us the income statement for 2016, we'd be more than happy to cater this to that income statement if you would like. We also have the assumption that the revenues from all other parks will continue to grow at an annual growth rate of 6.5%, especially with the expansion through the United Kingdom and optimizing on that as well. 3.5% of this will be from the brand awareness that your corporation will generate from the YouTube Red idea that we have for your organization. And 30% would be from the projected annual growth rate of London that we have created that we have analyzed from our research that we've conducted. Also, the revenues gained from franchising in Europe will be starting in 2020, and it will go on further from there. Furthermore, the expenses incurred from the implementation are the only expenses that we've allocated, as we don't know how your current expenses work for your organization. However, if you do give us that, I'd be more than happy to cater it for your organization's needs.
You mentioned Manchester, or one store. Is that the plan for the company in the next couple of years? Is it one location?
To clarify, you mean the park to...
Correct.
So in the next couple of years, we feel it is very important in the short term and the beginning of the medium term, so over the course of the 2-year period, it's important to focus on this YouTube Red TV show that you'll be developing. As YouTube Red is a premium product, it costs $5 a month, and that's why parents will be willing to invest in it, is because it provides a safe alternative to perhaps the bad actors on YouTube, where they cannot differentiate between what is good content and what is bad content. So that the parents feel that their kids are watching something that is safe and approachable and educational for them going forward. And once you have those revenues in place, you do the licensing agreement with Manchester, and going forward, you identify other opportunities for licensing agreements across Europe and inside of the United Kingdom, as we feel that that holds a very large opportunity for your organization that competitors have left untapped.
So maybe one quick last question. You talked about industry partners, I think, through the YouTube channel, and that we could generate revenue in that manner. Do we know sort of the dollar, like how much that's going to contribute to our bottom line?
Thank you so much for your question, and I'd like to redirect it to our financial pro forma analysis that I've generated for your organization. So as you can see from here, we've factored in the total revenue of your organization will continuously grow. And for that, the 3% that I projected for your organization will come from the brand awareness that will be generated with the YouTube Red brand. Now, from that 3%, we also project that that 3% will also incorporate all of the sales that you will be making from YouTube Red as well.
Thank you, that's all the time we have.
Thank you very much.